80% of people live paycheck to paycheck. We know that the average checking account balance sits around $450.
What is a healthy relationship with money? How should we perceive it?
You know, pursuing money is supposedly bad, except then you examine your own time and you think, holy cow, I spend an awful lot of time pursuing this thing called money that I kind of low level despise. It's a dysfunctional relationship, to say the least.
You mentioned give every dollar a job. What do you mean by that?
That's the only thing we teach.
I have heard you talk about spendfulness, which sounds like it's kind of connected to these principles. Can you explain that term? Jesse, welcome to The Art of Being Well.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited, Will.
Yeah, man. So you're in Utah. I love Utah. It's a beautiful state. So many. I'm going to take hopefully my wife doesn't listen to this episode. She has this bucket list of all these national parks. A lot of them are in Utah. Yeah. They're beautiful. I mean, unparalleled.
Yeah, absolutely.
God art, as what I call them. But I mean, it's otherworldly.
I've seen them a bunch, and even, if I ever find out myself back there again, it's like it doesn't get old. Like they're stellar, just unbelievable.
It is. Are you from there originally?
No, from Arizona. I mean, we have the Grand Canyon. That one's pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I ended up here right after college, basically, and this is where I met my wife, and. Yeah, once you start putting roots down, stuff happens. So here we are.
Yeah, yes, for sure. Yeah, I've never been, speaking of Arizona, another place that everyone tells me within the wellness world and like outdoor and the wellness world both tell me you have to go to Sedona.
Oh, yeah.
I've never been there. And I heard that's a must.
Yeah, Sedona has like a wellness vibe to it. I'm not like well-versed in the space, but we stayed there once with the kiddos, and you could kind of feel like, this is a place where kind of people go to escape, go to kind of recharge, regenerate, whatever it is. Yeah, it's an interesting spot. It doesn't surprise me that you say that at all. Yeah, that's pretty common.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why I haven't made it there yet, but I haven't. So I want to go back to the origins of your story. Let's go back to being a broke college student. I've been there. You've been there. So many people have been there, even if it's not college student, maybe just broke. Yeah. It's like it's seasons of life, or maybe we're there now. Where did your story begin there?
My wife and we decided to get married when we were young. I mean, I just turned 22. And
bro, I got married at 21. Yeah. We have such parallel stories.
It's just and like I wouldn't change a thing.
Young, broken, married.
Yeah, but that's just what it's like. You find the right person, you lock that up. But we were broke. I mean, we just weren't making a lot of money. We were thrilled when Julie she got a degree in social work, and I remember being thrilled when we found out that she'd make $11.50 an hour. We're like, oh man, that's gonna. Boy, we're really rolling in it, and and I still had several years of school left to finish an accounting degree that I had chosen not out of passion, but because I had read that the job placement out of our school was like 99.5% if you had that degree. So I thought, okay, that's my passion. Apparently, is just job placement. So that's what we were doing, and it was all great. But I knew we would need to watch our money closely and be pretty careful, pretty intentional. So I built ourselves just for me and Julie, with no aspirations for anything beyond, but just for the two of us. Built a little spreadsheet that we used to track, and not just track, but like the spreadsheet kind of enforced a way of thinking about our money that only later did I realize was kind of unique. So fast forward a year, and we wanted to have a baby, and Julie didn't want to have to keep working once the baby came. It was like, all right, her income's going to disappear. And that was where I thought, well, maybe I could just sell this little spreadsheet on the side, and that's how it got started. The spreadsheet lasted maybe a year before I realized, okay, we got to have real software. We got to do this for real. But it was a great prototype at the time. So that was
exactly.
That was how we got started.
Prototype.
And, we never took any investment, never took any debt. We just kind of grew it piece by piece, and now it's a web app, and we got a whole team behind it. I'd never dreamed it, never planned it, but here we are.
I love it. And just for people to know, like, I'm such a fan of what you're doing. That's why I'm having you on the show today, because I've never got to have a deeper dive conversation, probably at all, even a superficial conversation, but about financial wellness and how it's inextricably linked. I was someone that talks to people for a living about their health. there are so many different levels to this, and I want to cover all of them of how I see it so intimately tied to people's physical health, whether it's stress around money, which is maybe we could talk about the statistics there, but it's also about, okay, if someone wants to be proactive about their buying healthy food or getting things that are nourishing to their body in some way, they have to be planning, especially in the world that we live in today, and being proactive and not reactive and not just living paycheck to paycheck. And you're going to teach people to have financial wellness, which in turn will turn to whole life wellness. It really begins with that. But maybe we could start with this. Like, what are some of the statistics that you're aware of when it comes to stress around money? Because I see it oftentimes with new telehealth patients. It's on the things that's really impacting their physical health.
Absolutely. I mean, sleep is kind of in vogue right now. It's like, sleep's a great thing. We all want more sleep. We all need it. We see what it does for the body. And then people will often tell us after they've worked our method for a while, they'll say, man, I'm sleeping better. And in the back of my mind, I just think, okay, if that person's sleeping better, like what else is going on physiologically, emotionally, all the things for them that they're maybe just kind of taking for granted. They're like, oh, I'm sleeping better. This is great. But it's has this far reaching effect. And the way money reaches into every part of our life is a lot like how health reaches into every part of our life. Like, you got some chronic thing. I mean, I've had chronic stuff. I had for 7 years a vicious chronic low back pain, and it starts to get you so wound up and worried, and I mean, you can't really think of anything else. And when health does that to us, or something that we're struggling with, money's the same way. It just never turns off. You're like, could I get a break? But you're doing something benign. I don't know, pulling weeds in a garden or something, and then in jumps money. Like, hey, were you having a good time? I'd like to ruin that for you right now and just have you think about something else. And so it's just at YNAB we tell people, like, money is right up there with health and relationships. It's got to be. The stats are not anything that would surprise you. I mean, 80% of people live paycheck to paycheck. From our own data, we know that the average checking account balance sits around $450. Not because people aren't making money, but it's just they make it, and the bills are there waiting for the money to come in, and it just drops like a rock. And then they just ride the stress train until that next paycheck comes in. Some of them are working 2-3 jobs. They're doing some kind of a gig thing, which is great, but it's just everything's hand to mouth. Everything's, as you said, you took one of my words, Will, where you talk about it being reactive. And anytime we're reactive, whether it's relationships, health, finances, it is stressful. And that's what we start to unwind that for people. I mean, if people could imagine for a moment that you could actually do money where there was no money stress, all your other life stresses are still there. You're alive, you're working, life happens. Like, that's all normal. We actually need, we need some of that. But this money stress we carry is totally unnecessary, and you can shake it. Absolutely.
Okay, so this is, I want people to be empowered by this conversation and not like feel guilty or shame. Like, we all could have done better in the past. Like, I could have done better in so many ways. Like, this isn't about like regret or like, okay, but what can we do today? So what do you say to someone that's like, all right, paycheck to paycheck, so many people are dealing with that. Like, they don't really have much of, in the savings account, but they think that is the way that it is. You cannot be anything but that in this economy. And they have all the reasonings why, inflation, et cetera, tariffs, go on and on, unemployment rate. What do you say to people that say it's just how it is today?
Yeah, I mean, that's a classic response. It's a victim response, but we all do it. It's often a first response where we're just like, hey, it's just how it is. Usually, if you start to kind of find the people or find the evidences that say something contrary, like, try and prove yourself wrong in that regard, and just say, like, check your beliefs a little bit. We have at this point, I mean, 1 million maybe different people that have all just completely transformed their money, and they don't do it by making more. That's a classic thing. Like, well, if I could make more, then I would solve this. I could tell you really entertaining stories of people that make $500,000 a year that are stressed out of their minds. And they come to me like confessing like I'm some priest or something. Like I got to tell you, man. And it's entertaining and totally not necessary, you know. And then there are people that are naturally stressed because they're making far less than that, a tenth of it, but the stress they're feeling is the same. Now, the person with the bigger income shovel, can they get out of that quicker? Absolutely, yeah. They've got that tool at their disposal. But we work mostly with people that make good money and just ask themselves like, man, I feel like I should be doing better given my income. Like I feel like I should be doing better. And yeah, we can turn it around. It has nothing to do with tariffs or taxes or unemployment. No macro stuff. We actually just kind of dive into the microeconomics of a person's situation. Um,
No.
and honestly, we start with helping them kind of redefine what money actually is, and so just kind of tear it all down and start building back up.
Yeah. Tear it all down. People have all these limited beliefs around money and themselves,
Mhm.
right? And I love that you said like this. It's not necessarily making more money, and like the people that are making less, it's going to maybe it will take them
Yeah.
longer to get out of debt, for example. But it's just you're helping you mentioned 1 million+ people. You've helped. It's not making them more money.
No.
It's what are they going to do with the money they have and be more proactive and less reactive. So let's start with that just sort of disassembling of coming to the bare bones of what money actually is and the belief around that. What is money? Like what is a healthy relationship with money? How should we perceive it?
Yeah. Um, I'll just not bury the lead. Money is you. Like money is the person. The best definition you could walk around with for money is, hey, that 2 grand in my checking account that I just earned, that's me. And the reason I say that, you could go with economic oh, it's a medium of exchange. It's a store of value. It's a unit of account. I know them all. I'm well versed in it. I love the field. But the best way to think about it is, okay, how did I get this money? And it's that you sat down to a podcast and you recorded and you did that for 10 years. It's that you took care of patients and word spread and they referred people and you kept taking care of patients. It's everyone just putting all of their energy, effort, education, all of their life experience, how they were raised, it like their ancestry, it all just like comes behind them and is just like rolls up into the person in the moment that earns the dollar. And in that instance, I'm like, what else could we call money except just a little bit of you? It has nothing to do with how much worth you have, inherent value. It has nothing to do with that. But you can just look
Mhm.
at that money in your bank account and you can say, man, that's a representation of all of my blood, sweat, tears, and calories. um,
Mhm.
okay, there it is. And once you start to see money as that, instead of a chore, a to do, something that some people will call evil or at least not good, pursuing money is supposedly bad, except then you examine your own time and you think, holy cow, I spend an awful lot of time pursuing this thing called money that I kind of low level despise. It's a dysfunctional relationship to say the least. And so I want people to be like, man, that money there, like I earned that. That's me. That's all of me wrapped up, stored up, all of my time and effort and energy stored up in that dollar. And what do I get to do with it? And so
Mhm.
financial management, that's such a cold, sterile phrase where I want people to when they're spending their money well, I want them to think of it as like self-care, because they're
Yes.
caring for the money and that the money is them. That's where I want people to get with that definition.
So good. I've heard you say money is an energy medium. I think I'm saying it
Yes.
right. Like
Yeah.
that. So I love that sort of, visualization of that. What do you mean by it?
I mean, it could be as something as grand as you work a lifetime, all of the energy, you consumed it and then you burned it over and over again. You thought hard, you created things, all of that person's life experience. They let's a little hypothetical. They save up $2 million, and then they decide, they're like, when I die, I'm going to leave this in some kind of an endowment, and they set up a $2 million endowment, and it's for their favorite thing. I'll use a real example. My buddy is really into skiing, and in Utah we have phenomenal skiing, and he just loves it. Skis way more than a normal person should, but he just can't get enough of it. And he's really into this idea of setting up for people that have all kinds of disabilities, setting them up with really unique equipment that they would need to be able to ski, snowboard. And so we're talking about like wheelchairs and things that, I mean, and he's like, you wouldn't believe the equipment that we can get our hands on. And they raise money. And I just think to myself, you know, when he's gone, he could leave that money there as an endowment, and the energy that he expended to earn it all in oil and gas would then be used to like further energize that charitable foundation. And money really is just energy, because I can spend it on someone to walk back and forth across my lawn and mow my lawn. Like that's actual energy output. Or I can spend it on food, which was actual energy output to create that food. And when you can think about it that way, it starts to kind of get all of the baggage, like that all starts to kind of fall away, and the money is just left standing there like, well, what do you want me to be? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean by
Yeah.
energy, is like the energy you put into it, it has a stored energy. And then it's just a question of where do you want to point it? What do you want it to do
Mm-hmm.
for you? How do you want to express yourself through your money?
How, and we talked about many people are living paycheck to paycheck. So many people are, but we live in such a materialistic
Yeah.
culture, right? And balancing that is so interesting. Of you hear these statistics, but then you see all the materialistic junk that we have as a nation, and it doesn't compute to me all the time, because okay, people have the streaming, people have the latest iPhone, people go out to eat, people buy alcohol, people buy lots of
Yeah.
junk.
Yeah.
What but am I wrong? Am I being cold-hearted? But like what does the stats show of what Americans spend there, like not beyond bills? Like
Yeah.
what are people spending their money on?
Oh, I mean, we do consume. We are the world's customer. Like we, you know, and you mentioned the tariffs. Like that's one of the big kind of what I caught as more interesting in the broader discussion of that, which I frankly try and avoid, all things equal, is just that we consume. We are the world's customer, and you wonder what has us do that. Um, I have a lot of theories that are probably deeper than we would want to go into, but I'll just say what we've found, where we have evidence, not just me, you know, pontificating. And I'm going to just totally ruin everything about my business here and tell you like the secret of it all. And it really annoys me that this is it, but you mentioned people pay off debt sometimes. We don't tell people like, "Hey, how bad of you to do that? Get out of debt as fast as you can." You got to you'll find as you become more aware of what your money's doing, you'll find you want to start paying that stuff off, because it's annoying. It doesn't allow you to do the main thing we need you to do, which is give every dollar a job. And if you owe a lot of people money, a lot of credit cards, basically that money's just like, oh, you can't give every dollar a job because we're taking some of it first. So you'll naturally find, as you become more aware, more intentional, you're going to get rid of that debt. You'll find a pace that works. It's all going to be great. But we have tons of stories of people paying off tens and tens of thousands of dollars of debt in, honestly, sometimes very quickly. And I've interviewed at this point probably a shade over 100 people, where I ask them the direct question, like, okay, you were living paycheck to paycheck. Now you've paid off 30 grand in debt in a year or a year and a half or whatever, like an insane amount of money, paycheck to paycheck prior, massive debt paid off now. And I keep looking for interesting stories. Like, did an aunt pass away and leave you something? Did you sell a ton of stuff and just free up a bunch of cash? And Will, it is annoying to me, but literally 100% of respondents so far in my non-scientific but deep interviews have said, well, and I'm like, what did you do? And they're like, well, we did start eating out less. 100% of the time, people have said that. And it bothers me because it's such a simple solution. And everyone ends up landing there when they become very aware of their spending. And I love eating out. Like if you and I were together and we're like, hey, we're going to go to dinner tonight, I'd want to find somewhere great, expensive, quiet. I love that. But when it comes to just like, hey, grab something fast because I'm in a time crunch, it's not my thing. And people often find, as they become more aware of where their money's going and what they want it to do, they just find they don't want to eat out nearly at the same rate that they have been doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it all the time. And people, I mean, look, there's exceptions to what I'm about to say, but like being so immersed in people's lives and getting them healthy and looking all the facets
Yeah.
where obviously it's our physical health, but that's mental, emotional, spiritual health and different facets of that. It could be their relationships, it could be their job and the stress around that, stress around money. And the people, by and large, the vast majority of people, when you hear these excuses, and I would call it that, the sort of victim mindset of like only the wealthy can get healthy, and like that's not my experience.
Mhm.
I see just regular 9 to 5 people predominantly that just have a why bigger than their excuses. And it doesn't mean, obviously some people have it harder than others, of
Yeah,
course,
absolutely.
but they find a way because their why is bigger than it. And of course it's an uphill battle for many people, but it's not insurmountable.
Yeah.
And I think that this is why it's important to talk about this, because there's so much stigma, I think, around health specifically on many different levels, of people thinking that they're counting themselves out because they're not a one percenter.
Right.
And hopefully they can figure out through this conversation to be empowered, I guess, is
Yeah. Well,
my goal of this.
I love that you said your why is bigger than your excuses. That's I might steal that. I mean, that is
You
it.
take it.
Like you've got to have something that's bigger, where you're just like, no, I can, like, not gee, I talked to a therapist one time. Well, I mean, I talk to her regularly, but one time she said, what the worst thing you can ever say out loud to anyone or to yourself is the phrase "must be nice." You know, oh well, must be nice. Must be nice that
Yeah,
you
right.
make X, or must be nice that you know. And she's just
Mhm.
like, it is the worst phrase, and she hears it in her office, and she just kind of, she's like, she has to hold herself back from kind of pouncing on it. Like, you just eliminate that phrase from your thinking. Certainly never say it aloud, because it sets you up to not take action. You know,
Yeah,
and
it shrinks your
it
world. It
shrinks.
shrinks your world. It shackles your
Yeah,
world. You mentioned, I mean, you mentioned not wanting to pontificate sort of the deeper
yeah,
reasons of why we distract and numb ourselves with materialistic things. But I would love to go there a little bit, even if we don't have all the data behind it, because you're immersing yourselves on human behavior around money. I'd love to talk about what your insights with as far as our cultural obsession with consumption.
yeah. I mean, I think it stems from the fact that we are a credit based culture. Like, our economy is built on credit. Like, and I mean at the biggest levels, at the government level, at business level, all the way down. We fuel our consumption with credit. And when you do that, you must stay ahead of the the credit, and that creates this interesting thing where, like, you're on a little bit of a hamster wheel, but the wheel gets a little bit faster. It's what causes inflation, where we need to print a little bit more money, just a little, just this one time. But the government needs to print that money, which devalues the money of anyone that's holding it. Like any saver, if you're holding $100 and the government prints 1% more money, that's, the math's a little weird on that, but for simplicity's sake, your dollar now buys 99 cents worth of what it did. And in the court, if you're living in the U.S., which is a very privileged place to live from a monetary standpoint, we have the strongest currency in the world, and the strongest currency in the world drops to a value of zero in about 75 to 90 years. So in one
Wow.
generation, all of your wealth will be devalued through money printing, and the money printing must serve this credit cycle. And it's just the
Hmm.
way that the economy is the way that the economy is run. I'll say that. Um,
Hmm.
and so that, I believe that can, and this is me going into like pontification mode.
Hmm.
I believe that could serve in a really substandard way. It causes us as a society to feel like the dollar, with it devaluing, we need to get rid of it. We need to use it. And that's why some people theorize that we want to be on a credit system, is to inspire, and I use that word very loosely here, to inspire someone to consume, because we got to
Mm.
keep this thing rolling. And for however long, nobody knows exactly. Um, and so if you feel like that dollar can't actually be saved, it can be invested, where you can try and stay ahead of this inflation, but it can't be just saved. Like if you say, "Hey Jesse, I've got 10 grand and I want to save it for, I don't know, a vacation in 10 years, I would say, oh gosh, Will, you can't save it. You got to invest it because in 10 years, that 10 grand is going to be worth 8.5. And, we can't have that. And so I do think there's like this subconscious kind of just layer that's permeates everything where you can't just hold on to the dollar. It'll be debased. And I say that knowing that there are some countries where you're doing that kind of calculus in weeks, not years. That vicious economic situations with really bad currency. So that's beyond our scope at YNAB to try and figure that out. But you're having me kind of theorize, why are we so consumption oriented? And I think that might be one of the reasons.
That is an astute observation. I never heard someone put it together like that. It's what does the macro do to the psychology of the micro, of the individual?
Yeah.
And it's just inbred in us, right? When we're thrust into this world and this worldview when it comes to money. And then obviously this consumerism predates social media, but I would venture to think that it's like gasoline on the fire of this sort of FOMO-inducing comparison, right? Or is it the same, and we're just seeing more of it and hearing more about it?
I think it spreads faster for sure, and I think we're more homogenous because of it. So, like, you live out in Pennsylvania, I'm out in Utah. I'll bet we look more alike than we did 30 years ago as far as fashion and, like, I would just guess, like, because it's kind of homogenous, which is a little bit sad, and in some way, where it's like, oh, we're losing out like our pockets of uniqueness, like subcultures or microcultures. But then on the flip side, I love technology. I love, I'm an optimist at the end of the day. You can find subcultures on the internet that are just crazy niche, super small, and find your people. So I don't know, maybe it kind of cuts both ways a little bit.
Yeah, it's just evolving and changing. You mentioned give every dollar a job. This is an important part for people to learn. What do you mean by that?
That's the only thing we teach. It's like, we have software that helps you give every dollar a job. Like the software's sole purpose is to help someone live this method, implement it. And I should say, like, I might mention our software here and there, but someone can take our method that's free, that we teach for free, and just run with it. You don't feel like, oh, I got to use Jesse's special software to do this. You do not. It's like saying, oh, you got to, go to this gym to work out. You're like, no, you do not. It's available for anyone. So, the main thrust of giving every dollar a job is, and I've spent 20 years teaching people this, is that you've got your list of things you want your money to do, and you just, let's say you have $2,000 in your bank account, and you're like, okay, well, rent's due and it's $1,400, so you got $600 left. And then you're like, oh, and I got to get some groceries. So you got maybe 400 left. Like, oh, the phone bill's due. So now you have maybe 200 left. And then we just keep working our way down until all the money's spoken for. And when you give every dollar a job, we just have people work through the same 5 questions over and over again. It's a little bit like doing Ashtanga yoga, where it's the same routine. And the yoga stays the same, but like you change as you keep working it. And I'm no practitioner. I know it's dreadfully hard. And whenever they're saying, "Hey, modify," I'm like all ears. Like, how do I modify this one?
Please.
But it's this idea of working the same routine over and over again. And as you work that same routine, new insights are gained. And so the first question that you always start with, we call it the reality question. As you're giving every dollar a job, it's just these 5 questions. So the first question is, what does this money need to do before I'm paid again? And that's what I was just doing with the $2,000. And if I were working with you, you'd be like, oh, well, Jesse, but I've got some big things landing, or I get paid Friday. And I'd say, like, oh, no, hold on. We'll talk about new money when new money arrives. But one of the things that we do that's kind of unique is we only have you do this with money you have on hand, like in your bank account. We've found that what we're trying to have people run into, and this sounds odd when normally we talk about not being a victim, or we talked about empowering, but then I'm going to talk about the word scarcity as like one of the best things that's ever happened. We want people to feel the scarcity of their finite money. We want them to assign every dollar to a job that needs to be done for just the money they have on hand, and run out. So it'd be like, Will gets to 0. He was at 2,000, now he's at 0, and we're just like, okay, you're done. And your job would then be to just spend your money according to that plan. But it it's not quite so simple. And so our second question would invite like future will to the table. The second question is says, what large or less frequent expenses should I prepare for? And that's kind of you being like, okay, future will come to the table. I had this
Mm-hmm.
$150 left over, and future will's like the tires. The tires are gonna like they've got maybe a year left. It's like, oh, okay. So maybe we make a car tire category and we throw $100 into that, thinking they'll cost us $1,200 in a year. So future will is like,
Mm-hmm.
thank you. I will need that. I appreciate the thought. And so then you have this $50 left over, and you're just like, what do I want to do? Our third
Mm-hmm.
question, we've kind of oriented toward reality, and then we've started to build some stability by thinking about future obligations we might have. We now invite what we call our resilience question, and I would ask you, okay, well, what what money do you want to set aside for next month? And it's us explicitly beginning to break the paycheck to paycheck cycle. And
Mm-hmm.
it's something that you break once and then you just stay out of it. You don't have to keep working on it. You break it. It's like if I had a treadmill running and I'm like it's running quick and I'm like okay, well, jump on the treadmill. Like when you first jump on, you're going zero, your legs are going 0 miles an hour. But
Mm-hmm.
you'll catch up. You kind of feel like you're sprinting hard and then you find your pace. And then it's just kind of like, oh, we don't have to keep running that hard. We found our pace. Breaking the paycheck to paycheck cycle is that. And that third question explicitly asks you, what do you want to set aside for next month? The dream, and it takes people usually about 4.5 months to get there. Ah,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it depends on the person's situation, but they can get to where the money they earn in August, they spend in September. And then while they're spending
Mm.
that money in September, they're earning money that they spend in October. And they're a month ahead. That's where the sleep kicks in that we mentioned at the beginning, where it's like
Yeah.
you got time. Something goes down and something pops and you're like, oh man, what do we do here? You have time. Um,
Hmm. So this is breaking that cycle of paycheck to
yes,
paycheck and
yeah,
debt. And you mentioned for that forward, obviously it can vary, but you're saying like maybe 4 to 6
four to
months, you're
six
seeing
months.
some shift
Oh yeah,
in like what's happening in that time span.
they're becoming more and more aware of what their money has been doing, but more importantly, they're becoming more aware of what they want their money to do. Because has been is useless. Like what already happened, the money's gone. The debt that's already
Right.
there, that's just past spending. It like we'll deal with it. And so we just orient them with these five questions. And honestly, the fourth question is a good one because it's future oriented. We would say, okay, we've gone through reality. What should it do now? We've thought about the future. What do we prepare for? Large and less frequent expenses. That includes good things like vacations and bad things like a vet bill or whatever. And then the third question is breaking the paycheck to paycheck cycle. The fourth question, and these are verbatim questions that we teach. Like every word is on purpose. We say, what goals, large or small, do you want to prioritize? And that's where it gets
Mhm.
pretty fun. Where
Yeah.
in our instance that I've tried to keep track of in my head, we've got $50 left over, and you're going to get paid in a little bit, but we're still just focused on the here and now. And I'm like, okay, well, you got the $50 left over. What do you want to do? And you're just like, and you joke and you say, oh, I want to go to Europe. Like it's a throwaway. And I would say, oh, okay, make a Europe category. We're putting $50 in there. And we've done this with people where they think you may have been to Europe a dozen times. I'm not sure, but a person will say like, oh, Europe, that's out of reach. Like I'm not the kind of person that can afford to go to Europe. And when they fund $10, $20, $50 into a Europe category, and then maybe they put an emoji there with like an Eiffel Tower, it's like it just got real because that's real
Yeah.
money that went to a real goal, a real dream. And they realize, wait a minute, I just paid for all of my bills and I set aside some for Europe. And everyone listening, like I know $50 isn't going to get you there. But it's a reality that the person tasted of I have some for me to do something I didn't think was possible, and it like a switch flips. Our fifth question is an interesting one. You probably would appreciate this being in your space, having to give people permission to be forgiving to themselves. But
Hmm.
our final question, we just say, what changes, if any, do you need to make? So you set up a plan. It's like an eating plan. It's perfect. It and it makes no allowance for life, or willpower that's not quite up to snuff at 9 p.m. at night or whatever it is, or an emotional day. And so you teach people like, oh, okay, we just got to be able to flex. Like these plans need to bend and not break. And that's what we're teaching them with money. So
It's so good.
those
So
5
good.
questions over and over again. And then when new money comes in, you're like, hey, I got a paycheck. It was $5,000. It's like, okay, $5,000. We just go through it again. Future will comes to the table. It's like, well, we've got, I don't know, some summer vacation coming up, or the school year's coming up. And normally we do this, or the kids have swim, or there's, summer camp expenses, or whatever it may be. I mean, we've got all kinds of these large, less frequent expenses that we call emergencies, that if we invite future Will to the table, he would be like, no, I know about every one of them. Like they happen like Christmas every year, same day. Like we could do better here. And you just
Yeah.
set up that little Christmas fund and fund that. So that's everything we teach, in about as fast as I can say it. And I'm happy to dive in deep wherever you want.
Yeah, I would love that. I have heard you talk about spendfulness, which sounds like it's kind of connected to these principles. Can you explain that term? Because I think it's this intentionality behind it.
It is. I mean, our company is called YNAB, and it stands for You Need a Budget. And we do not say that word because it has so much baggage around it. It would be like you launching some eating plan where you're like, you need a diet. Can you imagine how not receptive people would be to that? That's what I named it when I was this nothing 23-year-old, setting out to buy a domain. Like it just absolute, just the worst. We've been carrying around that ball and chain for 20 years. So we were struggling because people are like telling us all these success stories they've had. They quit smoking because they became more aware of their spending. Like they saved their marriage because they're able to talk about money, this critical piece of a relationship. And I'm just, everyone was bothered internally, like, really budgeting? Like this is, and so we tried for about 4 years to redefine the word. And that is an uphill battle. Do not try that if you're thinking about it. Just avoid the word. And so
you tried to rebrand a very heavily loaded word.
Exactly. Yeah. We're like, it's fine. We'll get it. And we failed miserably. So we made up a word, and it captures it for us. To be spendful is to know yourself better and better and spend accordingly.
It's beautiful. I mean, there's there is this sort of self-care aspect to that concept, right? It's taking the money, the negative charge money, and sort of healing your relationship with yourself as being the central role in someone's finances.
Yeah. It's and you know what's fun about it is the funnest thing, we never tell people what to spend money on. Like we don't say, hey, don't eat out. Even though I know it's the secret to success, apparently, but we won't say it. We won't, certainly not. Every once in a while, you'll have a person be like, no, let me describe to you what eating out means to me. And I'm like, oh, you should eat out more. You should double down. Like you should hit a Michelin star every month, that kind of a thing. But they're rare. They're a pretty rare breed. But it's fun to not tell people how to spend their money. It's fun just to hear them, like watch them light up and tell you about their vinyl record collection. That was a YouTube comment I caught one time. I don't even know if it was a guy or girl, but they just were like, I will not stop collecting records, to be clear. Like I love it. And so then they were basically like, YNAB helps me do this, permission granted. Like I know all my bills are taken care of. I know I'm not being irresponsible, whatever that word means to you. I know I can afford this. I'm able to ramp up my collecting. And for that person to say I will not stop, and then to be able to say look, I actually have been able to double down and not have guilt and not second guess every vinyl purchase. That's a gift. I mean, they spend their whole life earning money, and then when they're buying vinyl, they're feeling bad about it. You don't need that dissonance. We just don't need it.
I love this. There's such a grace to this. Yeah. Where it's not about obsession and control. No. This is really, I see, an open-handed grace and lightness to money, which is antithetical to how many people are feeling right now. It's like people are feeling the opposite. There's so much shame and so much anxiety around it. So even us talking about this, I know some people have anxiety. They don't want to talk about this. But what you're saying is through this process, this is going to address these root causes of financial anxiety.
Yeah, it absolutely will. Your behavior will change, and your behavior is causing the anxiety. Like I don't want anyone to think like this is just a mindset issue. We talk a
Right.
lot
It's
about
just
money,
behavior
but
causing
the
anxiety. Yeah.
behavior's causing it. And so if you can start to switch and be like, I can do this, and if you can start to see money as a way to express yourself more authentically, perhaps overused, but more authentically in the world, then money becomes an opportunity instead of a chore. And like somewhere along the way, will like kids are so good when you tell them, hey, you've got like all, I've got 7 kids, so I have all the different ages that I can just test this with, and the first few are rough drafts, and we're getting better and better as we go. But the you give a kid $100, I mean a big amount of money for a little kid, and you'll watch them light up and just be like, what could I do with this,
Hmm.
somewhere along the way we lose that, and we don't imagine anymore about what our money, our hard earned, precious, like energy giving resource that we devote so much of our life to. We leave our families for the day. We skip out on dinners sometimes. We travel. We sacrifice for this thing called money. And then we turn around and say, "Oh, well, I'm not good at it." And
Hmm.
I just won't accept it. I just won't accept that answer. I want money
Yeah.
to the way you bless your life with all of your efforts, and the way you see like in your business where you're like, I am doing good in the world. You are rewarded for that with money. Let's thread that through to where you're like, well, heck, let's keep doing good. How could money do
Hmm.
good for me? How could money do good for the world? And just run it straight on through. I feel like
Yeah.
that, I mean, that'll heal some little portion of the world, and I just want to be a part of that.
Yeah. Oh, it is. The more people you're reaching with this philosophy, and not just philosophy, but behavior shifts and relationship shifts around money, this is healing many things. You mentioned something at the top of the conversation that I'd love to maybe debunk this myth,
Mm.
because there are people that have these limited beliefs, right? And they point the finger and say money is the root of all
Mm.
evil, and they see anybody doing well, whatever that means to them, especially online, right? They hold in contempt.
Yeah.
What's your thought on that mindset?
I mean, there are dirty ways to make money, for sure. I mean, there's at the end of the day, and if we want to just go like plain vanilla definition of money for a little bit, and kind of separate the person from it, which I don't like to do. It's a medium of exchange. So you exchange your time, and you get this thing, and it kind of holds its value, hopefully, and then you can exchange that for something else that you need or want. And there are a lot of ways that you can, there are a lot of things you can do to get money that are, no one would want. There are reasons that we have all kinds of laws and moral underpinnings,
Hmm.
because we got to have it. On the other end of it, there are a lot of things you can spend your money on that morally you'd be like, we don't really want to do that. Um, and if we think about it that way, you can sometimes look and say, oh, I can't believe that person, and you can judge, and you can say, hey, that's morally wrong, and that is totally okay. Like we are supposed to judge. Like if I'm saying, oh, okay, here's a babysitter walks in to watch my 5-year-old, I'm going to be judging that babysitter up and down, left and right. And you can say, like, Jesse, how dare you judge? It's like, okay, then judge me. But I'm judging that kid. Like, I'm going to just know everything. I'm not going to maybe do a background check or have a PI follow him beforehand. But if I could, I would. And
Yeah,
so,
me too.
and so you just like, it's okay. We're wired to judge. We make judgment calls all day long, left and right. So
Right,
if you
right.
want to judge that person and how they make their money, that's totally cool. But if you can separate the money part of it and be like, is it the money that's doing that? It's not. It's a moral thing that you're actually judging. Tease it out, and then find someone that makes money in this gloriously helpful way to kind of steel man the other side of it. I mean, find someone that
Hmm.
I don't know, uh, in 10 years, won't we hope that someone solves cancer with the help of AI or something? Like that's something I was reading about recently. Like, could we do it? Like,
Hmm.
I mean, someone will hopefully make just a life changing, generational changing amount of money, and they'll change the world. Did Apple make just bucket loads of money with the iPhone? And did they change the world because of it? Yeah. And are there some lousy parts of it? Sure. You and I are both old enough that we got to see the transition, so we remember the good old days. But at the end of the day, like it ushered in so much wealth for the world, and that's a good thing.
Yeah,
And so
100%.
we just let's leave it separate. Like you can do good and earn money. And I will say this, well, maybe to close it a little bit on this thread, the better you are at spending in line with who you really are, the more alignment you feel there, the more joy you will find earning money because you won't feel like it's fruitless. You won't feel like
Yeah.
it's pointless. And so even if you have all just like some mundane job where you're like, Jesse, honestly, I'm just kind of stuck here. It pays well. I don't really enjoy it. I promise you, if you learn to love how you spend, you will begin to love your job more. I'm not saying it'll become some panacea, but you'll see the earning side of it through a lens that will be new and refreshing.
Yeah. And I would assume that, like you said, you'll be able to see that separation between someone's morality and
Yeah.
ethics and the money, whether someone has money or not,
Yeah.
not money. I mean, that doesn't determine who they are. And that's even a twisting of that original
It is a
verse
twist of
in
it.
the Bible,
Yeah.
right? It's the love of money is the root of all evil. Sort of this obsession, this worship is where that even phrase came. Not money can be used for good or for
Absolutely.
not, right?
And if you make a lot of it, I mean, someone might be kind of saying, well, hey, for people that make a lot of it, they don't need to worry about what Jesse's saying because they make so much. But the more you make, the more incumbent it is upon you to see it spent well. I mean,
Yeah.
because it can be such a powerful force. So like let's use it well. Let's spend it well. And I will not say what well is. Like it can be like my friend I gave the example of the, the skiing apparatus and all the different equipment they can get. That's what gets him going in the morning. But for everyone it's going to be different. And as you discover yourself through the method of giving every dollar a job and working those questions, your own self becomes more known and you'll find out what lights you up and where that money should go to just express yourself even more forcefully in the world. And you won't
Mm-hmm.
have earned more. It'll just be more aligned.
Yeah, more alignment. You'll be a channel for that
Yeah.
energy force in the world. What do you think of the FIRE movement, like the financial independence, retire
Yeah.
early movement? What's your thoughts on it?
Um, I would be prone to it under normal circumstances. I love the numbers. I like the intensity. I'm a like if I'm a guy where you're like Jesse, you have to do yoga for 10 years, even though you said you were bad at it. But if I knew like that's my thing, I'm gonna go in. Like I'm gonna go all in. That's just how I'm wired. So I am predisposed to like the fire movement. Um, what I would say is make sure if you're so inclined, make sure that you aren't just procrastinating figuring out how to spend your money. That you aren't just putting off a hard question. How do you want to spend? Because you're really kind of saying, how do you want to spend your life a little bit? And so
Yeah.
fire people, and there's a lot of examples of this online where they're like, hey, I made it. And then they have a little bit of an identity crisis because they were wrapped up in that investing side. I think they come through it fine. I don't think they're any worse for wear. You're like, oh man, I got a big problem here. I'm retired now and don't know what to do. It's like, well, you'll figure it out. But I would just make sure that people understand if they're so inclined to jump into that movement, just make sure that it's not because you are putting off figuring out how you want to spend, putting off knowing yourself a little better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I see that, yeah, I love the concept as well, right? I mean, working hard, but it can become, like you said, this identity is in this work or the stress. I think of it too. It's like you're putting off enjoying your life and finding out what you value in this world because you're like work, 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 and it's just this. That stress isn't good for our health, and
Yeah.
I see that being very erosive to people's physical
Yeah.
health.
A good counter to the fire movement is the book Die with Zero that I really like. Where
Okay, what's the
I
premise
mean, the
of it?
premise of it is like, hey, you only live once, and your knees are good right now, so maybe you should do that heli skiing Europe trip, not when you're 65, but when you're 28.
Right.
That kind of a thing. Or hey, throw this big party because your parents, as morbid as it sounds, like they will not be around forever, and they can still travel right now. And so he has a great example of throwing this big birthday party for himself, where he just brought in all these friends, and he's like, probably the last time my parents would be able to travel. And the author of it has made millions and millions and millions of dollars. but the premise of it is sound, where it's just like, make sure you're figuring out your spend through the lens of not just hey, I'll do that later after I retire, but like, well, there are other ways. Like, money can serve you now in different ways that will pass you by as you go. I've
Yeah.
read a lot of personal finance books, and that was one I read in the last few years where I was like, oh, this one had me think differently. Where most of them that
Yeah.
you read now, you're kind of like, I've seen this before.
Right. Yeah, it's a kind of a middle ground because I have seen lately a lot of people in my life, guys that work their whole, and not just say guys, but people
Yeah.
work their whole lives and till they're in their 60s, and then they're this massive heart attack at the eve of when they're going to quote unquote live their life, and it just seems like that's not the way
Yeah.
either.
There's a
right?
balance there. Yeah. I think living spendfully will help you strike that balance. It's what helps people pay off their debt and still take their kids to Disneyland and feel great with
Yes.
it. Like, you can do that. You can eat good food and be working on a goal that
Yes.
something you wish never would have happened. You wish your 25-year-old self hadn't done that thing, whatever, like, okay. But like, you can have it all, just not simultaneously. And you'll figure out, like, I kind of glossed over that scarcity bit, but when you're giving every dollar a job, it means that you can't have a dollar do multiple things. And that trade-off, we're making these trade-offs constantly, but this practice makes you aware of the trade-offs you are making. So when you
Mhm.
decide to send $100 to the new car tire category, and then a friend calls up and they're like, hey, Will, let's go catch sushi. Now, in the old version, I keep using you because it's fun, but the old
Uh,
version of Will would be like, oh, I've got
feel
X in
free.
my account, so yeah, let's go to sushi. And the new Will's like, oh, but what about the car tires in 12 months? And that trade-off we've
Mhm.
made, but we aren't aware of it. And so we're just making people aware of those trade-offs, and their behavior starts to change, and it allows them to be able to make the trade-offs with like eyes wide open. Hey, I'm paying off debt a little slower because we're going to be going to Disney, and just
Mhm.
eyes wide open, versus we're going to Disney hell or high water. And I know this isn't great, and this is supposed to be a magical place on earth, but I don't feel good about it. But I'm going to put on a good face, and I'll pay for it later. And I know it, but I'm just going to second guess this whole time. And the churro is supposed to taste amazing, but it doesn't, because you've made a trade off you aren't totally kosher with, and you can have it. You can do both. You can have Christmas morning be joyful, not thinking that the January credit card statement's going to cause a big row. You know.
I love this. And like so many things that we talk about on the art of being well, it is typically a both and not either or
Yes,
thing.
I
Like
love
you
it.
can,
Love it.
yes, there will be trade-offs, right? But live your life now. Don't put it off to some, abstract time in the future. And I love, you must have done your research a little bit on me because you did, you're using Disney as
Oh,
example. And I do spend too much
okay.
money and time on Disney. So that is true. But it's my family's a weak point.
I think you're just born
Or
with it,
strength.
with the Disney thing. I talk to
Yeah,
people,
it's a
and
gene.
yeah, they're just like, yeah, that gene flipped on me, and here I am. So.
It's a genetic polymorphism for sure. The DSNY gene. You mentioned kids having 7 kids, which, by the way, God bless you. But maybe I missed this class in school. But like, why don't they teach this literacy around money in school? Like, they
Yeah.
set kids up for like
Yeah.
failure
It's
almost.
getting better and better every year. Like, you're
Okay,
seeing more and
good.
more high schools that are doing required personal finance classes. So I think it's getting better. Where
It
where
wasn't like that when I went to
No,
school, but not
they're
to
like, here's
date me, but
maybe here's a checkbook or whatever, and you're like, a
yeah.
what book? They're teaching. Yeah, it's better. The problem with it, why it doesn't just take off, is the kids don't really feel any pain necessarily. Like, their
Mm,
why for that class is
yeah.
really obscure. You might have, like, I would probably have taken to it like, oh, this is cool. Like, I'm the one guy that's like, guys, look at
Yeah,
this.
right.
But yeah, most are like, that's not for me. And so a lack of pain, I think, does kind of make it to where the kids just aren't as inclined to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to adopt
That
this.
makes sense.
Also, like, a little bit of a system is against us. A lot of those programs are funded by interests that are so inclined to make you think that Visa and MasterCard are like the end all be all. And so
Hmm.
you have this kind of finance light. Like the curriculum is very mainstream. It's like make sure your credit score is good. Make sure you know how a credit card works. Instead of having them recognize, like, I mean, can you imagine if you talk to a kid about and they had this core understanding of what money represents and what it could do for them, but we just talked to them kind of about mechanics instead of psychology. So there's still work to be done there, but I've got high hopes.
Hmm.
We give away our a year of software to any college student. We just like we're like use it for a year. On frankly, if they wrote in and they're like, "Could I use it for another year?" My guess is one of our support specialists would be like, "Absolutely, yeah, you know." But
That's amazing.
it's because we got to get these kids early before they paint themselves into a student loan corner or any number of things that
That's so
they
good.
could avoid. Yeah.
So what do you think of credit cards? I mean, it's like I went through when I was young and broke. I went through financial like training because I didn't learn it at school, and one of the things was really it was very anti. The way that I took it wasn't the best student when it came to this, but was like anti credit cards. And for years, I followed that. We're like, no, I didn't have any credit cards.
Mhm.
We were very frugal in that way, but I like later on, I'm like, okay, especially running a telehealth clinic and all the bills and overhead
Yeah.
and all that stuff, the amount of stuff I can get with points. I
Yeah.
mean, please, Chase Sapphire and my American Express, I can get so much stuff, but I can understand if you're spending money on credit card and you don't have the money to pay it off, that's not good.
That's not good.
But if you do have the money and you're being smart with it, so what's the balancing act with the perks of credit cards, but still, being smart with your money?
Yeah. The late Charlie Munger said incentives are undefeated, right? Um, and so
Yeah.
I would say this: um, the banks make money on credit cards, in like it's indisputable, right? They 92% of their credit card profit come from late fees and interest, which means if you're playing that card game right, you're like, haha, look how savvy I
Mhm.
am. It does mean that they don't make a lot of money on the interchange. It's called when a card is swiped. About 2 to 3% of that
Mhm.
payment doesn't go to the merchant; it goes to the processors, and it's a sweet, sweet monopoly for those processors. Like to get 3% of most swipes in the economy. I mean, that's a massive amount. The U.S. is abnormally high compared to other countries where those fees are far far less. People say like they don't pay it, the merchant pays it, but you do end up paying it because if you have a competitive system, merchant prices would come down because they're competing. So you do end up paying those fees. So it's a little bit of a toll, like a convenience toll, where you're like, do you want to take this and use it that way? Um, some people will not use them for moral reasons. They'll recognize that their rewards are paid for by other people's interest and fees. And it's a fairly, I'm not going to say predatory, but it's a fairly oppressive setup to have
Mhm.
interest rates, 20 to 25% on someone. That's hard to dig out of. And
Mhm.
some places it's illegal, but they set up in states where that's not illegal and they can keep charging really high interest. So when you and I enjoy those rewards, it wasn't paid for by the bank. That's it. It's a
Yeah.
different view that you can take. So, but for other people, they're like, hey, that doesn't move me. Like, okay, some people aren't great at it. And if they were, the banks would stop the programs because the banks wouldn't make any more money. Fine, that's fair too. Um, I then would attack it from another direction where I don't want the complexity. And I've stopped using a credit card for personal spending. I think in 23, I thought it'd be a good experiment, and I usually run an experiment every year. And so I stopped, and I just it made me more frugal, and I was
Hmm.
surprised. I'm not a frugal guy, but there was something about knowing that the money would go out immediately from my account versus having it bump up my card balance, and I had the money there for it. So it was a weird psychology that I still can't totally square. Um, so I enjoyed it so much, the simplicity of it, that we've just stayed. Like I think we're on year 3 of
Wow.
not using a credit card. And people ask about the fraud. It's total like the fraud's great. Like the fraud, protection. I use
Mhm.
Chase and they're just like, hey, is this legit? Um, I've traveled with it. It's been fine. So now on the business side, because you mentioned it, totally different story. Um, like to have employees that are using cards. There are all kinds of reasons why you don't want to have to pre-fund all this stuff for employee cards, and we use credit cards for that. Um, and I think that's probably where I would leave it. I mean, YNAB, our software is built to have the card act like a debit card. We really want the psychology not to be lost on people, recognizing that
Right.
it is a trap. If 92% of profits come from those things, we got to know that most people are falling for it. So YNAB does its best to make those two equivalent. So when you spend on your credit card and you buy some groceries, we move the money from the groceries category to your credit card payment category. We're kind of like, oh, you didn't spend the money, but you like we'll move it over so you'll pay off the card and everything will be fine. And so in that way, people sing its praises. It's an ingenious little setup. I like not supporting the banks in this way. So I think and that's I've evolved toward that. And like, I won't tell anyone like, do it, you should do. Not at all. But like, there's a little bit of like a stick it to the man that I enjoy with it that wasn't there at first. So take that for what it's worth. There's a bit of a ramble, but
no, I love it, man. I love it. And you're absolutely right. Psychologically, I could see that, right? And as someone that didn't have credit cards for so long, it's only been a couple of years on the business side that I'm like, oh, sweet. I get like a free airline, ticket, right? But I am completely playing into this system that is not good. And the psychology matters. Like you said, you have to treat it like a debit card. And I think because I'm new to this credit card world, which is crazy to say, that's how I psychologically see it. Yeah. It's not a separate thing. It's like, it is a debit card to me.
I think we do it as well as one could do credit cards. I think YNAB gets you as close as you can psychologically. I'm still not totally convinced because there's this part of me that just likes it's like a hippie thing where I'm like, like I want to have a commune and grow my own food. It's just like, I'm not doing the credit card thing,
Yeah, man. I may go back to it. I was crunchy for many years with it when it comes to no credit cards. This has been a great conversation, man. Before we go, the end of the podcast, we have Your Art of Being Well. First question is, what is the worst tasting healthy food that you eat? Some people don't have it and they're perfect and they love everything they eat. Some people do. They do it for the nutrition aspect of it, not for the taste. Do you have a food that checks those boxes?
Oh man, I don't eat a lot of different foods, so like I don't eat things that aren't good for me. Or no, I don't eat things that I don't like the taste of. I eat an inordinate amount of beef, and I love every bite.
Okay.
Shoot.
Well, if that's all you're eating, then
I mean,
maybe
it's probably 85% of my calories, and so, and I like every day I'm like, will I still eat this much beef today? And then I smell it and I'm like, oh yeah, I will. It's going to be good. There was one time I bought this when I was a teenager. I bought this supplement called Ultimate Orange, and it was supposed to give me this huge bench day. And I'm like 16, right? So and I read the full page magazine ad that was just like, your life's about to change. I order it through the mail. It comes through the mail. I was an early riser to go to the gym. I take a scoop of that Ultimate Orange. My parents are asleep in their room that was kind of near the kitchen. I just start drinking it, thinking it's going to taste like a lousy protein shake or something, I don't know if they stayed in business. I know they didn't have repeat customers. They were doing a one and done business model for sure. My dad comes out. He's like, are you okay? And I'm just like, oh, it was so atrocious.
Oh, that is a great story. The Ultimate Orange.
It was just this orange.
Ultimate
drink.
Orange.
I mean, just a total
We need
scam.
to bring it back.
Yeah.
We need to reinvent that. I mean, you couldn't do it with budget, but.
Yeah, we got to do it. It'd just be like the ad. I wish I had a copy of the ad. I bet the internet has it somewhere. Just a brilliantly written piece of copy. Sucked me right
That's
in.
Amazing. That's such a good answer. Next question is, do you take supplements? Maybe not Ultimate Orange, but do you take supplements today? And if so, do you have any like lesser known ones that are, people should know about?
I don't. I did vitamin D for a while, like pretty standard.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I just like, I think I'll get this playing golf. Like, and then so I stopped. I take creatine every day religiously though. I have since about those days when I was 16, back when it was this fad. And now people are like, I don't know. And I'm like, man, creatine, like you can do it. Like it's Is there a more
Yeah.
tested? I don't even know if there's a more tested.
No, it's
supplement.
one of the most well-tested
Yeah.
supplements out there.
Yeah, I'm religious on the creatine. I've done like fish oil stuff, but for the most part, I try and be pretty picky on them.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, and with the amount of beef you're eating, that's quite a bit of creatine there too.
That's
So you're
true.
creatined
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
You don't even need that supplement, probably.
I probably don't need it. And the supplement guy's like, oh, that sucker. He's paying me every month for that, you know? So.
Is there any place that you've traveled that in the world that should be on other people's lists to visit?
Oh gosh. We love to travel with the kids. That's kind of one of our spending spots. Like that's that we were like core memories. Oh man, if I say one, I don't want you all to go there because I liked how there weren't a lot of people there. Okay,
We'll make them spread it out.
Here's one: South Dakota, underrated. Like the
okay,
what's the name of the forest there? Now I'm black. I'm ruining it now. I can't even remember.
I don't know.
But you got Mount Rushmore there, and they have these cave systems there, and just like unbelievable beauty. And I felt like we had kind of stumbled upon it that no one knew about. So road tripping around there, that was one of our favorites. It's somewhat
awesome.
close by, so we had to go through Wyoming, which is kind of boring. But then, yeah, it was just this beautiful, idyllic place, and the kids really enjoyed it as well. I mean, ranging in age from at the time 5 to 17, so it checked a lot of boxes for us.
Amazing. Where's somewhere you haven't been to that's on your list?
Oh, like Antarctica. Like I'd love to just step foot there and be like, okay, there was a book that's called Endurance about the journey or voyage of Edward Shackleton, and all the horrible things that happened to him when they were trying to explore, and they all lived, and the book is just insane what they did to survive. And so ever since then I was like, I need to at least step foot on that place and then get out of there as fast as I can.
Yeah, right. That's a great answer. You didn't flinch on that answer. You knew Antarctica is the place. What's the name of that book?
Endurance. That was the name of their
Endurance.
ship, I believe.
Okay.
And they get frozen in ice.
Okay.
And it's written in this old school 1950s way. It's super fun. Yeah.
That's amazing. Do you know? No, most people don't know this, so don't feel bad if you don't know. Do you know what Enneagram you are? Like the personality?
Oh, 8-7.
Type? Oh, I love that you knew this.
Yeah, I just I looked at it the other day because I uploaded it to AI, and I'm like, hey, you should know who you're dealing with here. And it was like, okay, I'll tailor things accordingly. So it's actually pretty useful. I gave it a Colby, I gave it the Enneagram, I gave it a few others that you take them over the years.
Yes.
And Chat GPT or what I think I don't know which one it was, but it was just like, oh, okay. And I was like, can you use these to kind of know better how to tailor? And it was like, oh yeah, I'll start doing it. And
wow.
Yeah, so I think it's an 8-7.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a challenger. 7's like the enthusiast. I love that you knew this. And I love that you're teaching your AI things too. Have you heard about the people dating their AI? What do you think of that?
Oh, that's horrible. Oh, please no. Yeah, I'm mortified. I'm an optimist, and I am scared out of my ever-loving mind for this whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, unfettered. It seems kind of, where are we going to go?
I don't know. I mean, I have
as a society.
I have 2 kids in college, and to watch them use chat, you're like, this is here to stay. I mean, it's side by side. I was watching my nephew doing some serious physics work, and he just has it next to him, and it's just part of the workflow. It's here to stay. It's gonna change the world. I hope we that it's all good. But yeah, me too. Watch and learn.
Me too. My friend, where do people go to learn about the amazing things we're doing? Oh no, actually, before that, I want to say something. Because I've read a statistic in preparation for today's conversation. What percentage of people, when they use YNAB, report less stress?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if they're using it, they got to use it for 3 months to get used to the mindset shift of it. But if they do that, I'm claiming 100%.
I think I saw 98% of after a few months, 98% of YNAB users report less stress around money in their life. So
that was because
remarkable.
We put that in our wellness report when we give it to employers, where we're like, hey, you should pay for this for your employees. We say that we're like, hey, do you want your employees to be less stressed at work?
Mhm.
Here's one of the tickets. And then home life is less stressed, relationship is less stressed. It hits everywhere. It's a wonderful thing. And the bank account balance climbs. Like we can get people, it takes about 6 to 9 months, but they go from that average that I mentioned of 450, $500. We can get them up to 6, 7, 8 grand. And it just sits in there. And I mean, people will write in and be like, I've never had this much money. It just stays. And the bank
Mhm.
teller will look at you like, do you want to open up a savings? Like, what is all this? And you ignore them. You just let it sit there and do its thing. We see success. Now it's the person that's working the method. We're there
Yeah.
to support them. They can chat to us in the chat at in the app. They can write in. We run classes. Like I've hired a ton of people that care so deeply that others do this well. You will not be disappointed to write in and just ask for help. They are ready
So
and
good.
waiting.
So good. Where do people go? Where do people go to check this out?
YNAB.com. I won't tell you what the B stands for, just YNAB.com.
And I have a special one.
That's
It's
right.
YNAB. Yeah. YNAB.com/Will Cole gets you 3-month free trial. You don't need a
Oh,
credit card.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 months free. Thanks for your team for doing
Yeah.
that.
So 3 months means Well, one is we don't take your card up front. Can you imagine like people are accidentally subscribing to our service of all places to accidentally spend money where you don't want to? So we
Yeah,
don't take
not
the
a good
card up
look.
front. And then, you'll have 3 months without having to, put up, I think annually it's $109 a year. So we're in like I don't know, half of Netflix. I'm not sure where Netflix is right now, but boy, will it serve you better than that binge session of Netflix. That I'm
Yeah,
confident of. So YNAB.com
100%.
slash Will Cole, get you all 3 months for free. And then at that point, they're going to be so hooked on how they feel and how things have changed. I'm confident we'll get them to subscribe.
So good. Jesse, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.